What's up, everyone? It's Bryan here from Xact IT Solutions. Welcome to another video where we make you more cyber aware and bring you everything we can around cybersecurity. And today we have some breaking news around a ransomware gang that was actually stopped and seized upon between Bulgarian authorities and the United States of America authorities. And we're going to get into those details of what happened, what this means for other ransomware gangs. It's been pretty well thought out at this point that these guys were untouchable, and here today we have news that it's not. So before we get into that, remember, we don't get paid for this channel. We don't do the Patreon thing. We don't annoy you with ads in our content and things like that. So the only thing that we do ask at this time is that if you do like anything you see here today, you're educated in any way, if you're entertained, if we enlighten you, make you aware of something you weren't aware of before you saw this video, we just ask that you hit that thumbs up, like button, smash it down for us, and then consider subscribing to our channel maybe if you like any of the content that you see here and you want to see more of it. And as always, pop some comments down below. Let us know what your thoughts are. Have you dealt with ransomware? Have you been attacked? Let us know your experience, or let us know what you think of the content today. We'd be happy to reply to you and share our thoughts with you as well. So without further ado, let's jump into today's content. All right, so today's content, we have the onion site of the Netwalker ransomware owners up on the screen. As you can see, it's an onion browser that is shown here. It is on the dark web. That's where these guys operate out of, as we always cover on this channel. And it says this hidden site has been seized by the FBI as part of a coordinated law enforcement action taken against Netwalker Ransomware. And the images of the seals for the United States Department of Justice, the FBI, and then I'm not sure what the other two are. I believe they are Bulgarian equivalents of the Department of Justice and the FBI. But they did this in coordination with the Middle District of Florida and the Computer Crime and Intellectual Property section of the Department of Justice and the Bulgarian National Investigative Service and the General Directorate Combating Organized Crime. And they released a press release yesterday, Wednesday, January 27, 2021. And I'm going to go over kind of the high-level details of what's in this and what exactly happened here. But essentially, just to give you a little background, Netwalker is a ransomware as a service. And this is similar to what we talk about with other ransomware as a services like Ryuk. And it's a product in which the affiliates rent access to the continuously updated malware code in exchange for a percentage of any funds extorted from the victims. So the crooks behind the Netwalker used the website that I just showed you to publish personal and proprietary data stolen from their victims as part of their ransomware scheme. And as you know, we talk about on this channel quite often, is double extortion. It doesn't matter if you have backups and things like that. They are now threatening to release the data on the dark web, and in this case, Netwalker used this website that I showed you to distribute that information. An interesting point that I wanted to kind of show everyone is Chain Analysis, which is a company that basically follows Bitcoin around to see where it goes. And they here have the stats for the Netwalker ransomware payments. And these are the in here is the ransomware payments received by Netwalker, which is really interesting. But they traced more than $46 million US worth of funds to Netwalker since it first came on the scene about a year and a half ago. The company said in a blog post that I have up here on the screen in detailing its assistance with the investigation, it picked up steam in mid-2020, growing the average ransomware to 65,000 last year, up from 18,000 in 2019. So you see, in 2019 when they first started, the ransomware payments weren't that great, but then as you see around the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th month of 2020, what happened around then? Same time. March it creeped up for the first time, and then April, May, June, July, August, September. I covered a lot of attacks in September on this channel, and quite frankly, I covered a lot of attacks in June, July, and August as well. But in a statement on the seizure, the Justice Department said Netwalker ransomware has impacted numerous victims, including companies, municipalities, hospitals, law enforcement, emergency services, school districts, colleges, and universities. These are all the very same victims that I've highlighted on this channel and repeatedly told these industries you need to be aware of what's going on. Go back and look through our channel and see all of the times that we covered municipalities, hospitals, and K through 12 schools being targeted in these attacks. The Netwalker ransomware specifically has been known to attack the healthcare sector, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, taking advantage of the global crisis to, increase their victim list. As you can see, 5-10-fold sometimes, depending on the month. There is an individual that was discussed in the website here, in the posting here, the press release from the Department of Justice. There was one individual who has kind of been singled out as a top affiliate. Now, if you remember, when we talk about ransomware as a service is something where somebody can come along and buy the ransomware as a service to deploy on victims that they were able to penetrate. And there appears to be one top guy who was able to do this quite often. And as we've seen in other instances like this, this individual was halfway around the world from where the actual criminals were. And we look at these individuals as people who are very good at getting access to networks. They're not necessarily the ransomware experts, and ransomware experts are really good at getting into people's networks. Ransomware people are really good at developing ransomware, and then they hire people to break into your network. And I've covered that a million times on this channel as well. And this Sebastian Vachon Desjardins from Gatineau, Ottawa in Canada, he is Netwalker's top affiliate. And in an indictment unsealed in Florida, alleges that Mr. Vachon Desjardins obtained at least $27.6 million from the scheme. So he was one of the affiliates, and he was getting paid a percentage of whatever they were able to get from the victims. And this individual was able to get $27.6 million paid to him just to get access to these networks so these guys could deploy the ransomware and get paid. He gets a small percentage of the money. So you got to imagine how much money the actual ransomware developers have brought in if they're only paying, a small percentage. And I'm going to go into a little bit what that looks like here in a minute. So stay tuned. The DOJ didn't mention the defendant's age, but a report in 2015 in the Gatineau local news website suggests that this may not be his first offense. According to the story, a then 27-year-old Sebastian Vachon Desjardins was sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for drug trafficking. He was reportedly found in possession of more than 50,000 methamphetamine tablets. So it's not surprising to see that, criminals from the quote-unquote real world are now turning to the internet to, make money or make easy money and doing it in an illegal way. So it's interesting to see the little intricacies of these attacks and who's involved and what type of characters we're dealing with here. When businesses think of these guys and they think that they're never a target, that's not right, because just look at this. There's a 30-something-year-old guy running around in Canada who traditionally, before this became a thing, was selling methamphetamines on the street, and now he's in his house on a computer making more money, probably committing digital crimes. And this can happen anywhere. If you have the criminal mindset, the criminal mentality, you're more than likely going to be one of those people who thinks it's just okay to hop on the computer and start committing crimes there as well. These guys don't have to be in Russia. They don't have to be in Eastern Europe. They could be somebody who lives right down the street from you, who used to sell drugs on the street corner, and now he just decided to not come out of his house and use his computer to start committing crimes. So I hope at least that illustrates what the landscape looks like. It's not just these nerds that know how to hack and program and things like that. You basically have drug dealers out there who are no longer selling drugs on the street and think that maybe they have a less risky way to make money here. And that's, what this highlights and illustrates what the actual criminal underground of the internet actually looks like. And it's not much different than what you see in the streets of all the major cities in the United States, quite frankly. So moving right along here, this article also goes on and talks about some other things, but the ransomware affiliate program for Netwalker actually only kicked off in March of 2020, as many other ransomware developers started to go this route. And we talked about that around that same time when we started to see this activity of the ransomware guys no longer wanting to try to get the access to the network. They want other people to do that, and then they'll give them a cut of any of the money that they make. So, a lot of these, we know a lot of these ransomware organizations operate out of Eastern Europe, or what's known as the old Commonwealth of Independent States. But the interesting thing is we have information that tells us that these guys don't want to mess with Russia, which is really another interesting twist to all of this and why that is. And if you watch my other videos, you know my feelings on this whole situation. And how all roads seem to lead back to this one country when it comes to this stuff, and it's quite intriguing at this point. But when they did launch their ransomware as a service, they were posting across the dark web, and there was I'm going to shout out here to Intel 471, who translated a Russian post to English, and I'm going to go through what that says here to kind of give you an insight of how they do their recruiting, and how they were able to recruit somebody like our Canadian friend, who is now basically going to be, I think he is indicted and arrested for these crimes. And it goes on to say that we are recruiting affiliates for network processing and spamming. We are interested in people whose priority is quality and not quantity. So they're asking for you to give us access to good networks, not a bunch of little crappy ones. Because we know that these little crappy ones, there's a chance that they might not pay us and they'll just walk away, and it's not worth it for them because the data isn't that valuable. They want bigger companies where the data is valuable, or the threat of a data breach getting out is going to be enough motivation for them to at least pay these criminals. It goes on to say that we prefer candidates who can work with large networks and have their own access to them. We are going to recruit a limited number of affiliates and then close the openings until they are available again. We will offer you prompt and flexible ransomware, a user-friendly admin panel in a tour, and an automated service. Encryption of shared access. If several users are logged into the target computer, the ransomware will infect their map drives as well as network resources where those users are logged in, shared access, NAS, etc., which we know is a earmark of most ransomware these days. They basically encrypt anything that they can get their hands to or access to. It goes on to say that PowerShell build. Each is unique in that the malware is inside the script. It is not downloaded from the internet. This makes bypassing antivirus protection easier, including Windows Defender Cloud Plus. So basically they're saying the way we deliver the malware inside of a script obfuscates it from the normal way that ransomware is typically delivered. So antiviruses are less likely to pick this up because it's expecting to see a file, and when the ransomware is actually inside of a script or inside of a PowerShell script, the antivirus typically doesn't scan for that. They usually look for things that are like programs, like executables that run, or DLL files, or things that can run on the system, and it scans those. But when you're dealing with a script within PowerShell that contains the ransomware, that's a bigger issue. So then it goes on to say a fully automated blog where the victim's dump data is directed. So basically they have built into the software the ability for the data to be exfiltrated to somewhere else before it's encrypted. The data is published according to your settings. So there's settings within the software that you can set and how it's published. And instant and automated payouts, initially 20%, no less than 16%. So as I said earlier, the gentleman from Canada, or the criminal from Canada, got paid, 27 million, I think the number was, 27.6 million. He was only getting 20%. So, multiply that number by 80%, and that's kind of the number that you're going to have the criminals that built this ransomware. That's how much money they've accumulated, and you're talking almost 200 million. So that's big numbers, insane numbers. Accessibility of a crypting service to avoid AV detection. So basically when they deliver things, they deliver it encrypted, which a lot of times when things are encrypted, outside tools like antivirus or firewalls cannot read it. If it can't read it or it can't access it because it is encrypted, then it won't be able to read it. And in most cases, it passes it through the system. It doesn't block it, so it allows it to go through. And that's, that's a major flaw, I think, with security right now, is that hackers are taking advantage of the fact that they know that if something comes through the network or through your computer encrypted, most antivirus and most firewalls are not configured or set up to monitor or open that traffic up and scan it before it hits your computer and causes this damage. The technology is there and it exists, but it's tricky to configure, and a lot of companies just don't do it. So hackers know this, so they're sending these payloads and the ransomware over an SSL channel in the same way that you would go to your bank and your banking website and you would bank encrypted, so the information you're sending from your computer to the bank, if anyone happens to get that in between, it's scrambled text, and unless you have the key, you can't unencrypt it. The same thing happens when it comes over your firewall. If the firewall sees encrypted traffic, it really can't read it. It can't see what's in there unless you have a way to unlock that. And there are ways you can unlock it to inspect it before it actually gets to your end user computers. But again, that takes knowledge, experience, and security practices, and somebody who puts a lot of forethought and puts a lot of programming into these devices, so this all works and your computers actually still work. So I'll just leave it at that, but it's definitely something that it's called SSL Inspection if you're not familiar with it, and it's something that all of your systems should be able to do at this point. Whether or not you can configure it to work properly, you're probably going to have to bring in a network professional and a security professional for that. So don't try to do it at home yourself or at work. And then the rest of this is the ransomware has been used since September 2019 and proved to be reliable. The files encrypted cannot be decrypted unless you have their key, obviously. And here's the interesting thing. The post then goes on to say, targeting Russia or the CIS is prohibited. So basically, we want you to go after all the countries in the world or all the companies in the world except for the companies in these countries. That's not surprising, but it's also interesting at the same time, because what are you worried about? That's what I would ask. Like, why are you worried if you go after these countries? Why is that an issue for you? What would happen if you went after a company in these countries? My guess is, obviously, if your affiliate went and got access to a network in these countries, you wouldn't deploy the ransomware. But why is it that you won't go after these countries? What would happen if you did? That's what I would ask. So, and then it goes on at the end, it says you'll get all the information about the ransomware as well as the terms and conditions after you place an application via private message. In the application form, you have to fill in what you specialize in, what your experience is, what other affiliate programs have you been in, and what was your profit, and how many access to networks do you currently have, and when are you ready to start, and how many accesses do you plan on monetizing. So this was very targeted towards people who already have access to networks, to try to get them to say, okay, yeah, I have access to this network, that network, and that network, and I'm willing to sell it and let these guys deploy the ransomware, and so I can make a little bit of money. So a lot of things to ponder here. This is our first real big bust, so to speak. I'll definitely bring y'all an update when I know more about this situation. It'll be interesting to see if this is one of those things where they just creep right back up, and they just do their thing and set up more servers, set up new things, and do all those kinds of things. But it'll also be interesting to see, what our government will continue to do, and will they continue to bring down other ransomware gangs and groups, and will this have any impact on what we see with ransomware over the next 3 to 6 months? It's no joke. Netwalker was a big organization. They weren't the biggest, but they were one of the top. And for them to go down, assuming they got all the right people and they can't easily get this operation back up and running on another tour site, it's going to put a big dent in how much ransomware we see over the next 1 to 3 to 6 months. And if these same authorities can take down other groups, this is the kind of activity we need to start seeing, because it's been absent up until today. So I will bring you more information on this as we get it, but this is really important stuff. It's a good win for the United States, for the law enforcement that helped bring this down, but it's also a big win for businesses. As I pointed out in this article, U.S. businesses mainly, but basically if you're not in Russia or the CIS, you're a target of these guys, every single business. And this is a win for everybody. So everybody should be thankful that this happened. And we will bring you more as we learn more. And have a great day, everyone. That wraps up our content. Hit the like button if you're still with us, and subscribe to our channel. And if you're so inclined, share out our content to your friends. Just hit that little share button and post it on your social media. It'd be awesome. Thanks, everyone. Take care.